Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 5, which is the last day of the European Research Days 2024 Oceania, a flagship event of EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand, organized in collaboration with the Delegation of European Union to Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific. Thank you for joining us from different parts of the globe. And as you have been aware, it has been a long event with a very specific theme for each of these days and targeted at very specific audience. And day 5 has 2 parts to it. The first part is where you are joining in now, where we will discuss EU member state Oceania research cooperation and the role of scientific diaspora. Of course, later on in the evening at 6 p.m., which is Australia Eastern Standard Time, we will discuss PhD and postdoc opportunities in the EU member state. Of course, now getting into the program itself, please join me in welcoming our honorable guests for today and the first panel, which is on EU member states Oceania research cooperation. We have with us the EU Ambassador to Australia, His Excellency Mr. Gabriele Visentin, who will be moderating the session. And we are also joined by our 3 ambassadors from the EU member states. Her Excellency Ms. Beate Grzeski, Ambassador of Germany to Australia, His Excellency Mr. T. Mawe, Ambassador of Ireland to Australia, and Her Excellency Ms. Laurence, Beau, Ambassador of France to New Zealand, the Cook Island, and Samoa. I'll introduce the second panel as we move ahead with our agenda. A big thank you to all our speakers for your availability. I'm sure that the audience is very eager to hear from all of you. And I'm Nishan Sandile. I'm the Regional Coordinator for Australia and New Zealand at EURAXESS Worldwide. I'm sure that you are already aware of what EURAXESS does. It's an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and enhances scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. There are a few things that we prioritize. We provide free information about European research, career opportunities, international collaboration, and networking possibilities. As I always like to say, since all of you are watching this on your laptop or your phone, please type EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand on your Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, whichever social media platform you use, and follow us there. You can as well share about this event with the handle #ARDOceania. Now, I'd encourage all of you to ask questions that you might have while our speakers or panelists are speaking. We can come back to take your questions at the end of each intervention. I think it's a lot from my end already. So without further ado, I'll now pass on the platform to His Excellency Mr. Gabriele Visentin to start with the panel discussion. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Nishant, and thanks to my colleagues for having accepted the invitation and being present today in this VTC, and thanks to all the attendees who are watching and listening to us. So thanks to all for joining us. It's really a big, how can I say, pleasure for me because research is part of my professional background. When I was a very young EU civil servant, I started my career in the research and development and dealing with international relations. So this is something which is really close to my heart, and I really enjoy being part of this panel because it really brings together the competences of a long time serving a European civil servant. And now that I can watch it from another perspective as EU ambassador, it's obvious and clear how strategic cooperation and collaboration in research and innovation is for the EU external action and for the perception of the EU as a vehicle for technological development, cooperation, and development in the whole world. So I think that here we also are sort of privileged because we have 3 different kinds of possible participation to the EU activities. We have Laurence, who is the best place of us because she sits in a country which is associated to Horizon. Then it's us in Australia, which can participate to almost all of the pillars of the framework program. But of course, participate does not mean being associated. And I will not go into the details, but there is a clear difference between proposing research and setting up consortia, being associated, or possibility of participation means only being invited to join existing consortia or research activities. But then we have the third category, which is very important. It is participants from countries considered to be development states, which means that the participation of these countries, the cost of the participation of entities from these countries is borne by the EU budget. So we have three different kinds of participation. And I think this gives the full spectrum on how to best integrate the EU procedures and participation rules together with the member states and the national champions, let's put it this way. So it's really a great opportunity today to explore how Team Europe works also in research and according to where the Team Europe is placed. So probably this was a very long introduction just to set the scene, but I would like then to hear from you colleagues, your point of view. So we will start according to the agenda. So from the ambassador of Germany, Beate. So if you can start and saying a little bit how you see your role and the national roles in promoting EU research in the region. Thank you very much, and the floor to you, Beate.
Yes, thank you, Gabriele, and thank you for the initiative and the invitation, and welcome and hello to all virtual participants of the European Research Days. As the German ambassador here in Australia, I'd like to highlight some points from the German-Australian cooperation in research and science. Germany and Australia have around 550 official research corporations. And Germany is the fourth largest cooperation partner of Australia, of Australian universities, and our research and development sector is very strong. From experience, we know that Australian partners have a keen interest in issues and initiatives related to Germany and in making contacts and joint projects. We are happy to look back at a relatively long history throughout 48 years of cooperation in science and technology with Australia. As you all know, science plays a critical role in shaping our future, and both countries share the same challenges, but crucially, we are also connected by the same values, which makes us, in our view, excellent partners. Just mention some examples. Focus on the events of 2024 and look to 2025. This year, 2024, Australia-Germany joint science and technology meeting took place in Canberra. It was the sixth meeting of the kind. It was a meeting by government partners with the Department of Industry on this side. And among the topics discussed were green hydrogen, climate adaptation, research, marine and polar research. And these are only the points that are at the core of our cooperation. A very important subject is, of course, you wouldn't be surprised, green hydrogen. We are continuously working towards an Australian-German hydrogen partnership, beneficial mutually for both countries. The foundation was laid in the Australia-Germany Hydrogen Accord 3 years ago, that was signed there, and that resulted in joint and concrete measures as our bilateral funding called Highgate. And out of Highgate came 4 concrete demonstration projects which are necessary to develop a hydrogen supply chain. We have now a new development that might not be known to everyone. We have started a study regarding the import of green iron from Australia to Germany starting in the beginning of next year. It's called Steel Stain, Sustainable Steel Working AG. Partners from UNSW travel to Germany and discuss things. Progression of climate change is, of course, a big challenge for all of us. And in the beginning of this year, we looked at the Antarctic, the research icebreaker, our national pride, if I may say so. Polarstern came to Hobart, Tasmania, and the research focuses on instabilities in the East Antarctic ice shield caused by climate change. And the German Alfred Wegener Institute, the Helmholtz Center for Polar and Marine Research, looks back on more than 20 years of cooperation with Australia and Arctic Division. So this is really a very important topic. Next topic I want to mention is the cooperation with Queensland in the framework of Bioeconomy International. We have here 4 joint research projects that focus on a bio-based economy. The second joint call between Queensland government and the German Research Ministry was published in August, and next year we will know which projects are selected. Third point, I have to mention the German-Australian Science Days in Brisbane, Adelaide, Canberra as part of our German weeks. And we have a German-Australian, Australia-Germany Research Network, AGRN. Maybe you know it, many of you. And there we present a platform for German and Australian partners. It's based on LinkedIn, and there is room, as always, some potential to improve and enlarge, but I wanted to really inform you that this is an excellent chance to exchange among scientists. So, and we had the German DIAD, German Academic Exchange Service, that has an office in Sydney. You can be visited for offline contacts. It will celebrate its 100th birthday next year. So we are looking forward to more events and exciting events about that. And the role of the embassy as a matchmaker, we want to enhance it. We want to make further connections between researchers that last, that are sustainable. We have a science section in the embassy, a colleague, Julia Kaute, from the Ministry of Research and Technology, who is especially dealing with science. And we are blessed to have a specialist colleague with that. She also organized with the Leibniz Association delegation visit to Australia. And Leibniz, you probably know it, it stands for cutting edge research. And then they met with institutions and universities throughout Australia. I can only mention some examples. There are a lot more. I don't want to keep too much of your time. But next year, many of those things will be bundled when in February 2025, the German Rectors Conference of the universities plans to come to Australia to meet with universities. So I'm very happy that I can speak here today alongside valued partners. I see the other ones. And it's good to pool our resources, because the more complex global challenges are, the better it is to work together and cooperate. We will need to count on a lot of expertise from different sources. And that is also why our long-standing partnership with Australia is so precious to us. If you have any questions, any detailed questions that I cannot answer, I just want to refer you to the German Embassy in Canberra, to the science team, that will be more than happy to inform you further on any more details. So thanks very much for that. I'm looking forward to hearing the others and the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beate. It's really interesting to see the how can I say, magnitude of the cooperation and of the interest in cooperating on research and development on global issues from, let's say, a technological and scientific superpower as Germany is. So let's go to another, in a different way, superpower in the EU, which maybe can give us another perspective on the importance of research and how to enhance cooperation in research and development. Tim, your floor is yours, Ambassador of Ireland.
Yeah, it's great to be a superpower for once. Thanks very much, Gabriele. Thanks very much, Nishant, and thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. I guess Ireland operates on a smaller scale to Germany or to France. We're 5 million people, which is the population of Sydney and the population of Melbourne. But, you know, for sure, what we don't have in quantity, we aim to make up for in quantity and flexibility and agility. And I guess we've always been a country, Ireland has always been a country that values very much science and knowledge. And even if you go back to mythological times, we had, of all things, a salmon, a fish, who contained all the knowledge of the world. And in one of those mix-ups that happens in mythology, he transferred it to the wrong guy, who in fairness went on to be our top superhero for many generations. Later on in monastic times, it was Irish monks and Irish students who kept the flame of knowledge alive during the European Dark Ages. And actually from that time in the 9th century, we have our first intellectual property law. And then you come forward another couple of centuries, skipping over several hundred years, and you get mathematicians like Rowan Hamilton, who's behind quantum computing, and somebody you may have heard of, George Boole, behind Boolean logic. And interestingly, Boole was not an Irish guy, but he was a visiting scholar, mobile researcher, who did most of his good work in Cork in the south of Ireland. And then you come up to today and you find that we've got a healthy, very healthy research environment, public and private. We've been increasing funding every year for the last 10 years. And in this current year, we have about $1.5 billion in research funds available from the government side. Private by definition, nobody's quite too sure how much money they're spending. But if you look at the scale of the international companies that are based in Ireland with strong research functions, it is probably a multiple of the 1.5 billion. In this year, we've made a big development because we're always looking to keep ourselves in the right place. We have merged two bodies. We've merged what was Science Foundation Ireland and the Irish Research Council. And they've come together, I suppose, on one level to enhance their impact, more funds, more resources, but also to bring more cohesion. And as you get with smaller countries and more nimble operations, they work very well with other higher education institutions, with our state agencies such as Enterprise Ireland, which focuses on trade, IDA Ireland, which focuses on investment, and also the Higher Education Authority, which oversees the education system. The new operation, imaginatively called Research Ireland, has a huge range of programs to spend that 1.5 billion, open to lots of people. I won't go through the various programs here because it would take too long, but I would say use your research skills and go to researchireland.ie and follow the various links there, and you'll find something of interest, I hope. Just maybe a word on the relationship with Australia. I suppose what we have is what I would call a many-to-many relationship. Many universities in Ireland linked to many institutions here, doing many different things. Some of them very, very active indeed, some of them not so much. But I think that's the nature of the kind of business we're in. For ourselves here in the embassy, we don't have a dedicated science or research person, we're just too small. But what we are doing is we're taking advantage of our connections to ANU here in Canberra to do a short review in the first half of 2025 on the state of research cooperation between Ireland and Australia, what's working well, what's not working, where people are working, where they're not working, with a view to identifying some hurdles that might be there, but also trying to work out, should we double down on the stuff that is going well, or should we look at where the gaps are and try and start something there. I might pause it there, Gabriele, and thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Tim. Now let's go to New Zealand and Laurence, Ambassador of France, another superpower, and placed in a country which is already associated to Horizon. So you might even, on top of the French dimension, the European dimension, because the association is already working since sometimes. I think it has ended its first year or so of full implementation. So we can already have some ideas on how this works and on how this also enables the member states in having more cooperation with New Zealand and the region. So Laurence, really eager to hear from you. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Good afternoon, Gabriele. Bonjour à toutes et à tous, dear Ambassador Visentin, dear colleagues, dear Nishant, dear all. I'd first like to thank warmly EURAXESS and all the EU colleagues for organizing this year again, this very important regional European research days, and for giving me the opportunity to share my views in the context of the session on the cooperation on research. I've been serving as ambassador to New Zealand, Samoa, and the Cook Islands for the last 2 years now. And Very exciting news. Next year, France and New Zealand will be celebrating the 80th anniversary of their bilateral diplomatic relationship. So we have built over time a strong relations deeply rooted in common history since World War I, of course, culture, science, and mutual respect. We have been engaging New Zealand and France regionally and internationally as like-minded partners, supporting international rule-based orders, sharing the same values, and coordinating actions in the Pacific region, such as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, fight against illegal fishing, adaptation to climate change, to name but a few. Since 2023, New Zealand has made strategic and powerful choices, concluding first a FTA with the European Union and by joining the Horizon Europe. So New Zealand is indeed the first like-minded, highly industrialized country outside of the EU's neighborhood to associate to Horizon Europe. This will undoubtedly boost trade, of course, but as well as our science, technology, and innovation cooperation. It is definitely a major game changer. France is New Zealand's second scientist European partner with long-standing cooperation in agroeconomy research, geoscience, health, and medicine. Since 2023, our bilateral science cooperation has entered a new strategic phase with significant milestones reached this year. So first, a new framework cooperation agreement has been signed between INRAE and Science New Zealand. INRAE, you might know what it is, but it is the National Research Institute for Agricultural and Environmental Research in English. So alongside, we have launched a bilateral dedicated seed funding scheme for research projects between INRAE and the Crown Research Institutes here in New Zealand. There has been also the opening of 2 international research labs between INRAE and New Zealand Crown Research Institutes. The first one being Biomata. Biomata, it's on biosourced materials. It has been signed with Cyan. And the second one is Rumqual on meat quality. And this one has been signed with Agri Research. Alongside, also in 2024, this year, we have enhanced the CNRS footprint, CNRS being the National Center for Scientific Research in France. First, a joint international research project has been signed between CNRS and INRAE on adaptation of agriculture ecosystems to climate change. And this is something which is very important for France and New Zealand and Europe as a whole. Its name is Agri4Adapt, and it has been very well received. There has been also an international research project on photonics. The name is Wall-In, between CNRS and the University of Auckland. More recently, there has been a mission here in New Zealand by Antoine Petit, the CEO of the CNRS. We organized this meeting here, and on this occasion, we organized a workshop on Horizon Europe engagement. There has been also the signature of an agreement, a framework cooperation agreement between CNRS and Science New Zealand. So all these years, there have been quite a number of events that we have organized to really make the most of the joining by New Zealand to Horizon Europe. This year also saw the opening of the international research project between INSERM, Monash University, and University of Canterbury on imagery for lung cancer. INSERM is medical research center in France. We have also organized the signature of a framework cooperation agreement between IFREMER, which is the science, but maritime science and research, and the Cawthron Institute on adaptation of aquaculture on to climate change, aquaculture, of course, being very important for New Zealand. And lastly, we organized the signature of an ambitious framework cooperation agreement between France University and universities of New Zealand. So a major achievement is definitely the success of New Zealand's association to Horizon Europe. It is something, as I said, it's a game changer. 15 New Zealand successful bids under Pillar 2 of the program out of 58 applications, with 5 of them involving a French partner and 2 of which being coordinated by a French institution, and it's growing. New Zealand's association to Horizon Europe has fostered definitely strategic science and innovation dialogue, with new opportunities being assessed in Antarctic research, artificial intelligence, quantum, energy transition, food security, health, oceans, and climate change, of course, definitely. Last but not least, French universities and research institutions are also operating from the Pacific region in New Caledonia and French Polynesia. Horizon Europe can support the development of collaborative projects with South Pacific institutions, and this is an area where France and New Zealand see opportunities to cooperate as well. I will be able to develop a bit further on later, but so far, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Laurence. Merci beaucoup. And so we have had this first round with an angle coming from the member states on how single member states see their relations with the host countries and with the region. And I think that, Laurence, you really indicated what you defined as a game changer, which is the association of New Zealand in terms of scale and upgrade of the quality and quantity of participation to research. So just let's remind that Horizon is the biggest publicly funded research program of the world. It's around 100 billion euros, which makes more than 161 billion Australian dollars. And it is an incredible catalyzer for research. And here in the Pacific, only New Zealand has joined, but in the other part of the world, major scientific superpowers have joined. UK, Canada, South Korea, Japan has just started the negotiation. So it's really acknowledged worldwide that associating to Horizon Europe is of value. And let's just remind that associating to Horizon is not open to everybody. It's just open to highly developed scientific countries, which are democratic and which do not politicize science. This is very important to say. It's not just being strong in research, it's also being democratic, open, and respect the independence of science. And this is clear. Now, if we maybe go for the second round, unless any of you want to make any other remark before we skip to the second question. And the second question, maybe the second bunch of reflection could really be a consequence to your first. So now we have seen a little bit the kind of actions you are planning to do, you are doing, your successes, your achievements. What can be done next? What can be put forward to strengthen what is already very good and very promising? I mean, you already explained about some ongoing action, so maybe you already gave us some ideas of what's working well, but could you give us also some ideas of something which might be missing or which can be ameliorated from your point of view? So let's go maybe this time in reverse order. We start from the last. Laurence, you wanna chip in?
Yes,
and Kim,
yes.
You will be second anyhow. Sorry.
Sure. Thank you very much. What is working well so far? We have tangible assets to build on, such as research and innovation challenges of mutual interest between EU, and Oceania, climate change being one of many. So the challenges are common, existing collaboration too, and substantial scientific diaspora. And the diaspora, it's something which is very important. We can rely on long-standing researchers to researchers connections. They've been there for many years. They know how to work together. They are motivated scientific diaspora and community. And this can really, we can really use them to scale up cooperation. And also what we have tangible assets to build on, it's definitely the EU funding program, because Horizon Europe, Erasmus Plus, and other EU funded initiatives, which offer excellent frameworks for collaboration. What could be strengthened or added, maybe, it's access to EU institutions from the Pacific territories could be facilitated, definitely. While there is already a good exchange between researchers, more could be done, maybe to enhance mobility and foster long-term collaboration. Initiative to, for example, support long-term researcher exchanges or joint PhD programs. That's something that we could think about, we could develop to ensure deeper integration and deeper expertise between our countries. And maybe also a joint innovation and technology hubs. France and New Zealand, for example, could propose the creation of more dedicated innovation hub or incubators, focusing on key areas such as green tech, digital transformation, health technologies, for example. These hubs could serve as platforms for collaborative R&D, startups, commercial ventures, why not, that involve both European and Oceania researchers. And maybe to end, what might be missing, maybe an EU Pacific research and innovation platform. While bilateral collaborations are working very well, they exist, maybe a strategic regional dialogue framework could be of use between EU, New Zealand, Australia, the Pacific states and territories, could provide a clear direction for the development of projects, a collaborative research project across the whole region of the Pacific. So this is one idea. The second one could be a more acute private sector engagement, while academic and governmental institutions are well represented in the existing collaboration. There is room maybe to better embark on the private sector in Euro-Pacific collaborations. And this collaboration between public and the private stakeholders across EU, New Zealand, Australia, and the Pacific could support commercialization and scale up of research outcomes, because at the end of the day, this is what we want, and really also empower regional communities, which we think it's very important in the framework of the program. So this is just a few ideas, and thank you very much.
Oh, thanks a lot. Merci beaucoup, Laurence. That's very, very inspiring, also with concrete ideas. I will maybe pick up when we wrap up and open for questions. So, Tim, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's always good to be the middle child. You get in the middle every so often. I mean, when I look at what's going on, what could be going on, what's working well and what's not working well, and where do we as an embassy fit in this, I'm going to mangle a biological metaphor and say that as an embassy, I think we're both attendant, connecting the various parties who are dedicated in science and research, and also cartilage, trying to iron out problems and make the sharp edges go away. And we do this in a number of ways. I mean, for a start, the Irish research field, it's very good at collaboration, crossover between public and private, between university and industry and so forth. And we kind of support all of that to the extent that we do here in Australia. But also, there's a strong Irish connection with Australia, many Irish people here. So we reach out to the various Irish researchers, professors, teachers, and students in the various colleges, universities around the place. And in fact, there are 3 vice-chancellors who are Irish people, one in Adelaide, one in Melbourne, one in Perth. So we've good access to various universities. But I suppose one thing I've observed or noticed is that when it comes to promoting research, it's kind of difficult to force the pace or to arrange matches. I think what works is where a researcher in Australia meets a researcher from France or Germany or Ireland, somewhere else, and they have a shared interest in some topic, whatever it may be. And they work up some kind of a proposal or a joint project, and then they go seeking funding or support for it, whether it is in Australia, in Europe, or wherever. And if an embassy or a government or an institution comes on and tries to kind of make matches, sometimes that doesn't really work. But I think where we can help is maybe by providing more opportunities for researchers in whichever location to get in touch with each other and to have those conversations that could be a bit random, but could lead on to great things. And how much of this we can do, I mean, it's resource-led, depends a little bit on the level of interest that there is. And that review I mentioned earlier is something where I think we'll be looking at to say, well, look, with what we have, what can we do to bring Irish, in our case, Irish researchers and Australian researchers closer together and let them take off or not, as the case may be. Let's look for that synergy where it exists. One specific thing we do, and we're seeking to expand year on year, is we do provide fellowships for master's students in the Pacific Islands. Both the embassy here in Canberra and my colleague in Wellington, we have a smallish number of fellowships that are fully funded, aimed at graduates from universities of people living in the various Pacific Islands. And they've been very successful, not just in getting people to do higher education in Irish colleges, but in them coming back. There's very much an absence of a brain drain, which is really encouraging. So to go to Ireland for a year or so, and then to come back and contribute to our community. And that's what the program is all about. And that will keep running for another number of years, and we'll hope to expand it. When it comes to things that are not there and could be there, I'm not going to repeat the commercial for Horizon, but I'm looking at some of the questions that are coming in on the Q&A. And, you know, it seems obvious to me, as objectively as I can, that Australia's hesitation about Horizon is puzzling, and it's a gap. You know, as you mentioned, Gabriele, there's a fund of 160 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars. But with that, there's also access to all the educational and research and learning institutions in the European Union. So if you're part of a consortium, you don't just get the cash, you also get access to their knowledge and information. And it also gives a kind of programmed and collaborative structure to research. So you can have the random stuff, but sometimes it helps if you have a kind of program to enter and to follow and to guide you along. And it is pay to play, I guess. You know, Australia, it's not a free ride. Australia have to contribute something to it. But I think everybody knows that the opportunities you get from Horizon far outweigh the costs. I mean, New Zealand are not renowned for being wasteful of their cash. They're in. UK are very parsimonious. They're in, for most of it at least. So it remains a bit of a puzzle why Australia is not. And certainly talking to various academics and researchers around the place, they don't get it either. So it's something in the Canberra end of things that needs sorting out. But hopefully that will come right in the next little while. And I think just more generally, and again, I'd be interested in maybe what people have to offer here on the call. What kind of opportunities could we realistically put in place that brings researchers from Australia together with researchers from Europe in a manner that supports them in doing what they do best? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Great remarks. And I will take up some when we wrap up. But so without further ado, I pass on to Beate.
Yes, in my view, it's the government, and we are talking here as government representatives, has to set the framework conditions right. And then it's for science to really cooperate and find out where they see an added value. When it comes to the framework conditions, I can only agree with Tim, or Tim has said, that then the non-association to Horizon is a missed opportunity from the Australian government. They know themselves best why they have not associated themselves with it yet. But it's also for, let's say, interested parties, and when some listeners, scientists and institutions think there is an opportunity, they should also pressure and explain the Australian government that it makes sense, that they expect to cooperate, and that they see a lot of profit in it, so that this might also incentivize also the government to give it a fresh look. So that is something what I think that also the participants and scientists can do also on the Australian side. In our view, in addition to what was said before, we think that we should also profit a bit more from the time after COVID, when we were all virtual. Now we see the value, a new re-evaluation of meeting in person. So that's what the embassy does, and what we try to also to foster. We had yesterday, for instance, the Science Diplomats Club at the embassy, which brings here in Canberra together scientists, people from university, from the institutions, the government, together to talk about some issues that are pertinent. We talked yesterday about science communication and fake news, and what science can do in order to bring back a more civilized and fact-informed discussion on issues that are important to us. So that is something that we think should be done more. The role, I see also a role of the EU there in also bringing this further. And of course, we would also welcome if the EU delegation here in Canberra would have the opportunity to have a science counselor that could also foster these things. But I know that is not something that is decided here. As always, probably it's scarce resources. Scarcest resource are human beings and personnel. So, but I think that would be good. So that would be a good role also for the EU delegation to bring also here the relevant actors a bit together. So that is something, these in-person meetings, and I would, in addition to that, I think platforms are important, and I mentioned before the AGRN network that is that we have founded. It's a bilateral one. The colleague from New Zealand made the interesting and good proposal to have an EU research network, Australia, New Zealand, Pacific. This is a bigger picture. We started a bit more modestly on the bilateral scope, but I think the vision would then be to enlarge it. I would lie if I say it's easy. I would lie if I said we have thousands of participants, active participants, but that doesn't mean that it's not useful. And I think it's a group with a low threshold to participate, and it brings together also direct contacts of participants. So this aspect I want to mention: framework conditions, push to the Australian government for setting this framework condition right, asking or participating in Horizon, and then also enforcing the platforms that are there, in order to foster direct contacts. I think on the scientific side, scientists don't need the government or the embassies to talk about their subjects. That is not for us, but we can help bring them together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beate, and thanks to all of you three. You make my work extremely easy because you said all, and you said you just made the right points, each of you. May I just crystallize a couple of key messages? How important is the European dimension when it is about catalyzing and multiplying the research opportunities and interest in this part of the world, even for cooperating with national entities from the member states. It's very important that we have the possibility of cooperating within Horizon, even if from a simple non-associated perspective, because we have also to be factually correct. The participation of Australian entities into the framework program is already remarkable, and it helps Australian researchers to cooperate already with European researchers. Of course, association would be a game changer, as Laurence said it, because you experience the passage from simply participating to being associated. Being associated means that you are able to propose your own research activities and that you are able to set up consortia that you can coordinate. And this is an incredible qualitative difference in terms of accessing research or doing research activities. That is very important. And it's also very important from a geopolitical point of view, the fact that the EU acknowledges that the developing countries need financial help to be associated to high-class world research. And this is why the entities coming from developing countries such as the Pacific Island states, the Oceanic states, can get finance to participate to Horizon activities. This means that the cost of the participation of a Pacific Island university to a world-class research coordinated by an EU member this cost would be borne by the EU budget, by the budget of Horizon. So this is an important element to bear in mind when we address research in Oceania. Oceania is not just superpowers like Australia or powers like New Zealand. We also have the developing countries which have a great interest in elevating their scientific potentials and having their researchers and students mobile in the research sphere. I think this is a clear important. Then of course, all of this can happen only if the governments set up enabling environment, as you said, Beate. It's clear. If the legal possibilities is not there, then things cannot happen. So I have the questions here. Why Australia is not associated? It's a question to be put to the government. What I could maybe I should clarify that when you associate to Horizon, you don't pay or you don't give money to the EU. You don't pay a lump sum to the EU budget. You finance the participation of your own entities to the framework program. So the Australian contribution to Horizon would be to finance the participation of Australian entities. And since the framework program works on competitive selection, i.e. there are proposals which are then selected by a scientific board and then they become a Horizon project. Well, this means that the selection would be on the basis of the scientific merit. So it's not that money is thrown in the EU bin and nothing comes back. No, the national contributions are on the basis of the success of the national participations in Horizon. This is a very important element to say. Then there is a little bit of contributions to the administrative cost of the framework program, but this is a sort of marginal as compared to the rest. So just to set the things right, it's not that you pay a fee on the basis of your GDP or whatever with to be associated. It's a contribution on the basis of the success of your entities, basically. So this is an important element to put up front. I see some questions which say, what can we do to help this process? Well, I think be vocal. Here in Australia, we have the Group of 8, the Association of Universities. We have the European Australian Business Council. So you have both universities and businesses which are very vocal on the need to associate to Horizon. Keep up, be vocal, be heard. Also, there are elections coming. Maybe it's a good it's a good moment to have the message passed publicly. But again, it's up to the government to assess the national interest in the long run. So we can simply very respectfully and humbly underline the fact that many in Europe and in Australia would like Australia to associate, but then it's up to the political level to decide how to go ahead. Well, we still have 8 minutes. I don't know, colleagues, would you like maybe to have further remarks and then questions? Laurence, please.
Thank you very much. And this was a very excellent wrap-up. I just wanted to say a few final words on my part. When I talked about empowering, I think this is very important. We really want to empower the scientific community and the regional communities in the Pacific. I wanted to highlight the thing that New Zealand has been really supportive in the emergence of the setting up of the Pacific Academy of Science in Apia, Samoa. And this is something France support. So we really have to think about that because it is a strong, it's a big news. And I think it's also about supporting the emergence of the future generation of scientists here in New Zealand, in the Pacific, to be able to think about tomorrow's solutions for the challenges that we meet. So this is something that is very important. And finally, I wanted to say that in the Pacific, all the French institutions of research, I talked about IFREMER, IRD, Institut Pasteur, CNRS, they are and universities, of course, but they are based in the Pacific, but they are European. So this is something that we can really rely on, and that's what we do, and that's what we are doing with New Zealand as partner in Horizon Europe. I close my sentence, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci à toi, Laurence. Magnifique. Beate, Tim, any further reflections? Tim, please.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose one observation is that without rehearsing our positions across the European Union and Trans-Tasman, we're coming a very consistent set of perspectives, which is encouraging. Might be disappointing if people were tuning in to hope to big row between various EU member states, but we're on the same page when it comes to science, research, and cooperation. And in terms of how you might encourage more, and this is maybe where I'm looking at the Australian research community, and not wishing to sound like an upcoming US president, but people like winners. And if there are Australian scientists doing good cooperation, Australian researchers doing good cooperation with European counterparts, talk about it, show people what's working, because then people pick up on it. There's a lot of good stuff going on. It may need to be amplified. And whether it's in Horizon, out Horizon, it doesn't really matter. The connections that are there that are good, let's strengthen those, let's amplify them, let's broaden them. And then you get a bit of momentum behind it and things take off. People copy winners. Thank you.
Yeah, totally agree. Because we have already very good stories to be told. Huh? There are already great projects. Above all, even in medical research, fight against cancer, there is a great project with the University of Dublin, and others in the UK for fight against skin cancer, and for the University of Adelaide, for example. That would be a project to be explained and would be a big traction. Yeah, thanks, team. That's really a good idea. Beate, anything else from your side?
Yes, I mean, I think that the basis is, in our case, is quite strong. There is a lot of interest on the scientific field and a lot of cooperation going on. And one factor that is quite positive from our side is the diaspora, and that is also the German scientists that came here, be it that they are on a study program, be it that they immigrate to Australia, but that we find them still connected to their home country, and this is also a richness that we can build on. And I mean, they are in Australian institutions, and so that's what our experience is, that they are also in a way informal ambassadors for cooperation with Europe, with Germany, and to do more things. They have still come in a relation to their old institutes in Germany, and then they build these bridges. So I mean, to look in a more systematic way also how to engage the diasporas in the country would be very useful. And I mean, in our view, it would also be great if some Australians are ready also to go to Europe, go to Germany. In Germany, obviously we speak German, but there are more and more also a lot of institutions and facilities that are teaching in English or researching, of course, in English. So to have that way from Australia towards Europe, to also engage that a bit more, and also there talking to the Australian institutions and try to get them supporting the playback, let's say, towards Europe would be also worthwhile. And that is something that our delegations that come, when we brief them, this is also something that we tell them that this would be worthwhile to incentivize Australian side to do more. I know that the understanding of the role of the government and the role of the state with the universities and the role of universities is different in our systems, but nevertheless, something could be done to make these wonderful research opportunities really happen, also with a little seed money or a little support from the government side. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Beate. I think this is the perfect bridge to the next panel, because you both actually mentioned the importance of the diaspora, of the scientific diaspora to Australia, which is huge. I witnessed myself more than now, I just remember two, but there are surely more key scientists from Europe who are now holding key positions in Australian universities. The Vice Dean of Brisbane Universities, German, and others. And definitely, this is very, very, very important. And so I think that the following panel was set up to answer to your wishes, Beate and team, because it will deal about the importance of the scientific diaspora. And so before passing the floor to Nishant, I would like to thank you all. Laurence, merci beaucoup. Beate, danke sehr. Team, thank you very much. And to all the ones who have had the patience to listen to us, put in questions. Please consider, as Beate already said, our embassy is at your full disposal. We all have functional mailboxes. Should you have any follow-up questions or research for information, feel free to contact us directly, or Nishant is even paid to answer your questions on EU-funded research. So you can go to him first, and then let's see. Anyhow, all the very best, and thank you very much. To you, Nishant.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Visentin. I think it was an extraordinary panel. I mean, I really didn't want you guys to stop discussing about research cooperation, and a big thank you to Ambassador Grzeski, Ambassador Beau, and Ambassador Mawe. I would echo what was one of the first comments that came up, which said that thank you to all the ambassadors for considering research as a priority in their portfolio as well. And I mean, from EURAXESS end as well, a big thank you to the ambassadors for all the work that they have been doing, and they explained it very well. I think it's imperative in the direction that we should be moving. So I think what your discussion did bring out a lot of food for thought, and I'm sure that every word that you have spoken will be resonating with a lot of audience, and there will be people will be getting in touch with you on this. So a big thank you for your time. I'm aware that we have hit the 1 hour mark for your panel discussion. A big thank you for taking your time from our end. It has been a pleasure. Thank you. I think with that, we, as Ambassador Visentin said, we will swiftly move on to the second panel, which is on the role of scientific diaspora. And we have an excellent panel again that will be taking over on this. So we are joined by Dr. Irina Risser, who is from the Australian-German Research Network, Dr. Ilaria Pagani, who is from the Association of Italian Researchers in Australasia, Associate Professor Angel Lopez Sanchez, who is from the Spanish Researchers in Australia Pacific, and Ms. Brune Bocobja, who is from the Australian-French Association for Research and Innovation. First of all, a big disclaimer, I might have messed up on some of your names. Please excuse me for that. It's excellent to see all of you here. I had the pleasure to have a similar discussion in 2022 when we had this conversation, but of course this was during the COVID pandemic and our discussions were a lot different then. And I'm sure that in these 2 years you have been able to work on a lot more research cooperation opportunities. Also, I remember that Angel was there with us in 2022, so it's your second time, Angel. Welcome back. For everyone else, it's the first time. I'm sure that the audience will have quite a number of questions to discuss with you. So what I'll quickly do is I'll let each of you very quickly give some opening remarks, and there you can highlight the research cooperation activities done by the research network that the Diaspora network that you represent, as well as if you have any announcement for us in terms of what activities you are going to come up, feel free to jump in, okay? So I see that Fedya has joined in. He will be moderating this session, but very quickly, maybe we can start already with who wants to go first. Maybe we can start with Irina first.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This is great. And yes, I'm here today representing the previously mentioned Australia-Germany Research Network. It's a network that now, I just had a quick look how many members we have. It's more than 2,000 members at the moment who are more or less active, I think, which is the nature of these kind of networks. I'll go back a little bit and then go to an outlook what's going to happen. So the AGRN was founded in 2018 as a bilateral and collaborative project between the German embassy in Canberra and the Australian embassy in Berlin. And its aim is to really build a network or bring together a network of German researchers in Australia, Australian researchers in Germany, people with some form of interest in bilateral research collaborations between the two countries. And it brings everyone together with the aim to share information about possible funding opportunities that are upcoming, but also to share successes, stories, and kind of activities that are happening within this network that are not necessarily all coordinated, but they just happen and they might be interesting for one another. So being founded late 2018, there wasn't much time before COVID hit, and networks like this, I'm interested to hear everyone else's opinion, but networks like this suffered or changed, I guess, in a way, because we couldn't really plan anything. So last year, 2023, was kind of the year of the relaunch for our network. We had noticed that it's become a LinkedIn group. That's it. And we wanted to reactivate the in-person engagement, but also the activity within the network. So we launched it with a series of events. So for example, in Melbourne, so Nisha was part of it. We had a panel discussion on the sustainability of research collaborations across, the distance between Europe, Germany, and Australia. And that led the foundation to our activities in 2024 that were really more based on co-designing and cooperating. So as this network doesn't have anyone who's actively running it, or the embassy is running it, but there's no time allocated to it, we have decided that it's a smart way to co-design and to co-badge things. And we started that off in February 2024 when a Bavarian delegation came to Queensland where we launched the Bavarian Queensland Research Alliance with a 3-day workshop, and AGRN was involved there as a form of networking, branding, outreach, and also bringing in our connections that this network has to the embassy and to also German industry in Australia. The same happened with the previously mentioned delegations. Leibniz was here, Fraunhofer was here. The AGRN is kind of a platform to communicate with the researchers about what's happening. And I think that's actually a really important part to showcase the activities that are here, that are taking place in a field, I think, or in a country and a field that is often quite siloed. Not everyone always knows what's happening. So as an information platform, it's really good. Then we had also previously mentioned the German Science and Innovation Days in Brisbane, Canberra, and Adelaide that were kind of the in-person celebrations of successes. So we had grant applicants that were, or grant awardees coming in and giving presentations on their projects. Joint PhD students came to present and also had the chance to meet the wider network. Out of that, there's a new development that's happening, or a new idea to form a branch of this network focused on younger researchers, so on doctoral candidates and ECRs, acknowledging that often the demands are very different and the information shared might not always be the same. And another plan or a thought was to also strengthen connections between the DAAD that has a large network here focused on exchange and student mobility, but also with the industry that is here and that often, I guess, has a lack of talent that we can definitely fill. And there was a question that popped up in the chat. It's an open platform to join. So if you're interested in joining the network, go on LinkedIn, type in AGRN or Australian German Research Network, and someone will approve it and you're in. So it's very low barrier to join and hopefully one of increasing relevance. Thank you.
So I presume that I can take over from Nishant. I'm sorry to be a bit late, but of course it took me 10 minutes to get to a super secure Zoom connection, and I ended up being on the phone, but I still hear and appreciate what was said. So, let's continue this round table, and then I will say a few words. If Dr. Pagani could say a few words in this respect.
Absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Ilaria Pagani, and I'm the president of the Association of Italian Researchers in Australasia. So first, I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to present. I think that is great that different associations can chat to each other, because I didn't have idea there were so many associations of researchers here in Australasia, and I think that it could be great if we can meet all together and maybe organize some symposium or some event and discuss about how we can improve this collaboration. So I'm based in Adelaide in South Australia. And I would like to say a few words about ARIA. So this association has been created more than 20 years ago by the Italian government. So the idea was to have an association of Italian researchers in every Australian state. And there were different areas. So there was area in Queensland, area Canberra, area in South Australia. But the only one that actually survived was area South Australia. So when I moved to Australia 10 years ago, I didn't really know that there was this opportunity to join this network. But just randomly, through Facebook, I know that there was this opportunity and I joined ARIA. And in 2020, I became president, and I realized that it was important to try to connect all the researchers in all Australia, in New Zealand, and in Pacific Island. And with a small group of researchers, we decided to create what is called the ARIA Australasia. And now we have more than 200 members, and we have a very small group of researchers that are very active in in every state, and we meet every month, every time and trying to organize some event, some network. So today I want to briefly talk about some about the importance of Italian researchers in Australasia. And I'd like to talk of economic competitiveness and social progress, strengthening the Italian innovation system, and training young talent. I have only a few minutes, but I want to try to summarize all that Italian researchers have done in the past years in Australia. So there are thousands of Italian researchers in Australia, and the main researchers, they are based in the main city where there are actually the main research institute. So Italy and Australia have a long history of bilateral relations. And this was driven by shared value and common strategic interest. So what is important to know is that the two countries established the first diplomatic relation in 1959, and we are two complementary G20 economies. And Italy is an important partner for Australia, especially in the area of scientific and technological cooperations. So today, we have the relationship in science are regulated by the treaty-level agreement on scientific, technological, and innovation cooperation that entered into force in 2021. So, only briefly, the majority of the cooperation between Italy and Australia are in science and technology. So we have more than 8,000 joint peer-reviewed publications, and they are increasing in the past years. And the top fields are in the field of medicine, astronomy, and astrophysics. There are a lot of collaboration, especially in oncology, in genetics, and in particles, field physics, and in space. So today there are 25 agreements active between Italy and Australian University and Research Institute, but there are a lot of agreement between a collaboration between researchers, which are not regulated by an official cooperation. Very briefly, the main agreement that there are the one between the Australian Space Agency and the Italian Space Agency. We have collaboration in the field of hypersonics, in the field of Australian synchrotron and the synchrotron Electra in Trieste. And also we have collaboration in the dark matter. And also we don't need to forget that there are also collaboration in the field of the humanities, but they're not so many, and we need to try to also to foster more this kind of collaborations. So in conclusion, there are a lot of collaboration in the field of the medical research and in technologies. Here, this is what is happening in Adelaide so far, is what is called the Australian Biomedical City. The Australian government has invested $3.8 billion to create this biomedical city with research institute, hospital, clinical facilities trial. So we need to think that this could open opportunities to collaborate with Italian Research Institute. This is something that we need to try to foster better. So finally, I would like to talk about the role that ARIA had in fostering this collaboration. So I think it is important from our association to create a bridge and bridge innovation gaps by bringing back cutting-edge research technique. So in the past years, we have created a guide with the committees to help new Italian researchers in South Australia. And last year, we wrote this book, which I recommend to read. It's called Italy and Australia, Redefining Bilateral Relations for the 21st Century. This was edited by Gabriele Abbondanza, Simone Battiston, and it was an example of what's happening when Italian researchers meet together and we wrote this book that has been presented also in the Italian government. As ARIA, we had the initiative last year We organize an event for the Italian Research Day in artificial intelligence, and also we participated to event Italian researchers in the world, which were the Stati Generali 2024 and the Conference of Italian in the world. And finally, as ARIA, we are trying also to promote and training young talent, offering mentorship program. So there are a lot of senior researchers in Australia, and we can actively mentor young talent, not also locally, but also Italian students that are in Italy and that maybe want to follow the research careers abroad. And what we would like to achieve in the future is to establish exchange program and scholarship, offering a PhD exchanges, fellowship, and SIG grant. And finally, we have a key strategic initiative like ARIA Women, and they offer a program of mentoring for women. So in conclusion, we want to train young talent, expand exchange program, mentorship initiative. Also, we would like to have more education on Horizon Grant Scheme, Marisa Lodoskova, IARC scheme, and maybe discuss all together on solution for help the return of high-skilled Italian researchers from abroad. So I've concluded, and thank you for the attention.
Well, thank you very much. It's always interesting to hear all the things that are happening, but it's also equally nice to see that probably we all started from the same perspective, that we are just arriving to Australia and we don't know everything that is happening and all the opportunities. So that's once again I would like to thank Nishant and his team that they're offering this so we can learn and that no stone will stay unturned, and that then next year we won't have these excuses that we have not known. So on that, if Professor Lopez Sanchez could say a few words about the Spanish researchers in Australia and Pacific.
Of course, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with all of you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Associate Professor Ángel López Sánchez, research astronomer at Macquarie University, and actually I'm talking today from the control room of the Anglo-Australian telescope. That's why I have my background image anyway. Let me tell you a couple of things about SRAP, the Spanish Researchers in Australia Pacific, which is an independent and not-for-profit community association of volunteers in Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific. So it's a bit different to some of the other networks, I think, because they have not been driven by an embassy or by official channels. It was just that we joined together different researchers and founded the association. That was done by researchers working in Australia Pacific in all branches of science, culture, and art, because it is not only science per se, we call it research, very broad, in a very broad perspective. It was created in 2015, and currently we have more than 300 Spanish researchers between Australia, New Zealand, and some Pacific islands, mainly Vanuatu and Fiji. And the mission of SRAP is fostering collaboration and culture through research and development. And we do that through 4 key objectives. The first one, promoting and mentoring our members. The second one, scientific and cultural dissemination. The third one, connecting academia with industry and society. And finally, promoting international relationships and science diplomacy. SRAP, we organize regularly many networking events, for example, Research Bites or the famous Pinchos de Ciencia, or Pinchos of Science. We participate and organize events for Australian National Science Week, and we organize many other social events, including visit to research facilities, for example, visiting here at Siding Spring Observatory in Coonabarabran, New South Wales. But perhaps our most important networking event, it is the Australian Spain Research Forum that puts together Australian and Spanish researchers in multiple disciplines as well as between universities, research centers, industries, diplomats, artists who have an interest in scientific research. And we just celebrated our 10th forum at the Australian Museum in Sydney last October, and with a series of really interesting conversation between researchers and artists. Just have a look. Everything it is online, so you are welcome to look for it. Precisely crossing the 2024 SRAP Research Forum, we also hosted the third SRAP Fundación Ramon Arrece's Early Career Research Award ceremony. That is an award that we provide to a young researcher, originally from Spain, but based doing the research in Australia Pacific. The winner in that case was Dr. Isabel Núñez Lendo, who is a Spanish researcher of international experience in environmental science, focusing on coral reef conservation and restoration with coastal and inland community engagement. So again, that is a way of encouraging and fostering the research that people who are in the diaspora, scientific diaspora, far away from our native country, are able to do for emphasizing all of this. Also, since 2018, SRAP and the Spanish Embassy in Australia organized the Malespina Awards that are awarded to individuals and organizations who have made a significant contribution to the scientific and or cultural relationship between Spain and Australia. For example, the 2024 Malespina Awards in the individual category recognized the outstanding contribution of Professor Alfredo Martinez Exposito, University of Melbourne, who is one of Australia's most senior Hispanics. Furthermore, in collaboration with the Instituto Cervantes Sydney, SRAP created the Cátedra Cervantes to bring relevant researchers from Spain to Australia, and not only for public talks, but to collaborate with Australian researchers and give research seminars and start new collaborations. The best example was when in 2018, we had the very famous microbiologist, Professor Francisco Mojica from University de Alicante, one of the developers of the CRISPR techniques. Also in collaboration with Instituto Cervantes Sydney, in 2022, we started a series of conferences with the aim of bringing closer Australian and Spanish universities. We have had 4 of such conferences so far and have already driven new collaborations. For example, we just opened a couple of years ago, actually, a pioneering PhD co-tutel program between Macquarie University and several universities in Spain, University of Valencia, Autónomas of Barcelona, and University of Córdoba, with others that we will probably join, and other universities in Australia, also driven through this initiative, have started contact with universities in Spain, promoting the collaboration, not only with young students, but also with senior people, bringing and moving people around. Finally, let me also add very, very quickly that SRAP is proud founding member of EURAXESS. EURAXESS, it is a network comprising 22 associations of Spanish researchers globally. And EURAXESS perhaps exemplifying Spain's scientific diaspora better than anything else, because represents about 5,000 Spanish researchers working worldwide who have pursued careers in other countries, contributing significantly to global scientific advancements. So let me just summarize with that organization, like the ones that we are here, including, for example, EURAXESS, we are really playing a pivotal role in connecting and supporting these expatriate scientists and facilitating collaborations, knowledge and change, networking, partnerships, and professional developments. And this initiative not only enhances the original countries where we are from, Italy, Germany, France, or Spain, but also they enrich the research landscapes in the countries where our scientists are based, for example, in Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific. So thank you for that.
Yes, if I'm not wrong, the ceremony that you mentioned, Malespina, the 7th award ceremony was this Monday. So yes,
Yes,
I think it's yes.
It has been an interesting week for me because on Monday I was in Canberra. On Tuesday I was in Sydney attending other things, including another important networking event with the Chamber of Commerce between Spain and Australia, that we also have a lot of collaboration with them. And actually some of the industries are our sponsors. For example, Indra or Navantia. Navantia sponsors the Malaspina Awards. And then on Wednesday, I drove back to the telescope where I am now.
Okay, good. Hopefully every week will be as eventful as this one. And on this note, can I ask Ms. Bokobza to tell us a bit more about the Australian French Association and about activities that they are doing?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Prune. I'm the co-director for the Franco-Australian Center for Energy Transition, and I will be representing our president of the Australian French Association for Research and Innovation, AFRAN, Catherine Daniel, who's very sorry that she couldn't join today due to an earlier commitment. To tell you a bit about our network, so we are the French Australian network. We had a few initiatives before 2016, but they were, very. There were a huge diaspora through the different states in Australia. So a few initiatives in Victoria, another one that was quite big in ACT called the Australian French Association for Science and Technology. And because we had this really strong French researcher in Australian network, we decided to merge all of them in 2016, making us a bit of a bigger network, because at the time we were about 300 researchers, and now we just hit the 1,000 registered on the network. Our main goal, which is very close to what my colleagues from Germany, Italy are also saying, is to support and empower the community of researchers. We also aim at creating more links with industry players, community stakeholders, and of course policymakers who are involved in existing research and innovation bilateral collaboration. So as I was mentioning, we are growing membership, and we are also trying to expand our presence online. So don't hesitate to follow us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, which is called X now, and on our website. Within this 8 years of activity, we developed a few ranges that start from sharing information from our website to organizing a mix of grants, workshop, and an annual forum for discussion. When we decided to merge this network, we also organized a few strategic points for the 5 years, which were the 5 years where we really had maybe the most of the scale up happening. So first, we decided to also open our network to a regional perspective, especially because France has a presence in the Indo-Pacific region with the territories. So that can be from the French Pacific Islands. And that's why during the COVID year, we took up on the opportunity that everything was online to do a research network forum online with Numea, so New Caledonia, to try to bridge also to the neighboring territories the collaboration. But more recently, we launched Indian Ocean Hub as well to foster this relationship. Another key point for us was to launch a community of our association directly back in France that can also liaise with the Australian Embassy in Paris. And we are very happy that we started that 3 years ago, and it's still growing rapidly. Other than that, in Australia, we operate both on a state-based hub. So we have one in New South Wales, one in Queensland, Tasmania, Victoria, South Australia, and ACT. And we also operate on thematic hubs from health to energy, bushfire, space, and we just launched this year an artificial intelligence hub with the arrival of a French expert who's based permanently in ACT to help us grow this network. Now, what we aim to do for the next 5 years is, well, to solidify everything we started after the merger. It's growing rapidly, and we have a range of activity that is very, very dynamic. However, we still need to try to make the events bigger. So we have a few cafés scientifiques where we can meet with representative at a regional place. So, for example, we'll do one in South Australia, Queensland, to discuss with a few researchers on a specific topic. But we aim at also creating bigger events, except the one that we have annually, which is the big forum. We think that that's something that would be great. And I see that some of you are very interested in working on an event across the different countries and networks. And we think that's exactly the kind of things that we would love to be part of. We also aim at solidify our relationship with the region, and in terms of new hubs to have, we hope to start having a presence in Northern Territories, as well as launching something on agriculture, which is an area where we know that we have a lot of French researchers in Australia, but we were not able to identify them as much as we would have loved to, considering the importance of this thematic for France and for Australia, and I think for Europe in general. We just had our annual forum, so if you were not able to participate, you will have to wait until next year to participate again. I can't tell you where it will be because we are changing states every year. This year it was in ACT, and it was really much focusing on industry and policy engagement. Last year we did one in Perth, and the year before it was Victoria. So it's possible that we'll look at New South Wales or South Australia. It's usually a mix of, keynote presentation, panels, but we also try to add on some new activities that can be very inclusive to everyone. And especially we want to have also a focus for students, which are the prospective researchers. So this year we organized a hackathon for PhD students who would be interested in entrepreneurship, but don't really know how this will be integrated in their daily work. And we organize it on the thematics of energy transition and climate change. And we had a lot of success. So this is something that would love to do again. And it's when we think about research, sometimes the student part of things is not the first that we tackle, and we do believe that it's important to foster interest already with the student, especially given that there are more and more exchanges between the countries. So this is a group of people we should target as early as possible to ensure that they stick into the network and they have access to some support and connection to the network. We also had a diffusion of film on women in science, and inclusivity is something that we are very, very interested in also addressing through the network. And we try through different activities to make it a priority as well. You have here the QR code if you want to join us, just in case anyone would have interest in following what we do. You would be through joining us, you will be part of our database, and you will also be registered for our newsletter to receive information of the current activities that we have. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Always very interesting. And of course, this was only the introduction of the last panel. So, it means how much we have to say. Of course, I have a few questions, and the first one, and we can go, one by one. Each of you, in a way, explained now, in a way, more focused on your national network. But of course, how do you see the role of this scientific diaspora in promoting cooperation, but then it's also not just on the country to country or region to your country, but also the kind of the EU level, which adds a little bit of complexity, but at the same time, the bigger network, the better. So how do you see the role of the scientific diaspora connecting this region with your country, but also with the EU? And if somebody wants to start, I don't think we have to have a strict order.
I can start.
Well, maybe. Okay, yeah, please, Irina.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep it brief so we don't run out of time. And I think I firstly want to second what the ambassador said before, that the scientific diaspora here is a form of informal ambassadors. We are all here and we bring our networks with us. Nobody moves country and then decides to never talk to their former colleagues again. So every person here is connected to a wider network in Europe, if that's where we have moved from. So I think it's also important to keep in mind the invisible diaspora that hangs behind, that is attached to everyone who's here. So our networks are huge. And I think the main roles that the scientific diaspora has here is firstly, is to be an ambassador, but also this intrinsic motivation to collaborate, the networks we have. And then I think everyone acts as a form of translator in ways of culture, system, language. And I think I'll quickly go through 3 examples, if that's okay. So firstly, the AGRN obviously is this large network that acts mainly online, that is a platform to share information. In my other 2, if I switch hats, my day job, I coordinate the gateway office of a German university for Oceania. And in that network, I think that the role of the diaspora is slightly different. We have, the focal point is that one university is very driven, is very coordinated, and the diaspora is often the first. It is often the ones who are most likely to cooperate, most likely to say, I've heard of you guys, I'd like to work with Germany. But they are then the ones who bring in the colleagues who are not from the diaspora, or from a different diaspora maybe also from Europe, maybe from Australia, from Asia, from around the world. And they then act as a form of translator for the systems, for example. We all know that working life is different, science is different, even though we share some things, the way we think, the way we work is different. And I think the diaspora has a really important role to play in that translation that makes collaboration easy and smooth. Because I think if we kind of generalize, research collaborations are successful, of course, when they're funded, when they're complementary and what we like to achieve and how we do it, but also if we like each other, if it's easy. Nobody wants to work with each other if it's super difficult. If every time you have a Zoom meeting, you're dreading it because it's so hard, you're more likely to put it at the bottom of your list of priorities rather than at the top. And I think the diaspora, the members of this diaspora can act often as the person to smooth out the different possible misunderstandings, the jinx can happen. We can act as information, as saying, oh, that's actually what he or she meant when he said that or that. So I think they're really important. And then briefly another hat. So last year I was very actively involved in setting up this Bavaria-Queensland Research Alliance, which again is a different role. The DVCR of QT who was driving this is German. So again, we have an actor of the diaspora who's self-motivated to drive it. It was picked up by the governments, by the state ministries in this case, and became totally detached from a diaspora. But then looking back at the applications that we got, there was often tag teams of 2 or more people who applied together. One of them would have German heritage, the others don't. So I think the mix of the knowledge, the motivation, the capability to translate, to smooth out, to tap into older networks, mixed then with people who are just maybe interested in working with Europe. Maybe it's because of funding programs or because of complementary research infrastructure. It's a really nice way of thinking about it. And I think that's how we can really use, if we want to use that word, the diaspora and utilize all the capacity that is there in terms of scientific knowledge, but also in terms of cultural knowledge and language. That's my brief thought.
Well, there was one question in the notes, and I will just ask you, and so others can touch about it too. The question was whether, from the audience, whether how do you fund your network, whether it's membership based or embassy funded, or a mixture of both?
In terms of the AGRN, that's easy to answer, because it was established in a joint embassy funded program between the two embassies. It is now a free membership. You join the LinkedIn group, and it's often people from the diaspora who feel strongly of running it, of being involved, that do it voluntarily. And now we're lucky enough to have Julia at the embassy, who is also helping out. And then events that we run are always co-funded on a case-by-case situation. So there is no real funding pool attached to it.
Okay, thank you.
I can answer that for someone else to go. But for example, in the case of for OCESS RAP, I'm not going to mention anything else about the scientific diaspora because mentioned briefly in my when I was presenting SRAP before, and Irina have done a very remarkable way of putting all the other pieces together. Basically, it is what we try to do. I will say that summarizing in the networking and helping each other, helping people who are coming from, in particular now, from Spain to understand the system in Australia, but also helping Australians to understand the system in Spain and in Europe sometimes. And these are very interesting collaboration, great in different ways. Regarding to the funding, in the case of our association, originally, as we were created, we have a membership because that was the only thing that we could fund our first activities. But luckily, soon enough, we are starting to have the sponsorship from different bodies, from governmental entities, for example, the Spanish Embassy, for some particular events, or the Instituto Cervantes Sydney. They sponsor us, but also we were lucky to get funding from foundations from Spain. Two very important ones, the Cancer Foundation Australia Spain and the Fundación Ramón Areces, who are actually our main sponsors, the two of them. And additionally, in the last few years, thanks to the lot of networking and joining events together and participating together, we have been very lucky to have the support from industries who are based originally from Australia and are based here. As I mentioned before, for example, Navantia sponsors the Malespina Awards, but we also have a sponsorship from Indra, from Ferrovial, from Consistex, from the very same Chamber of Commerce, not directly as payment, it's just that they are offering us to participate in the very, expensive events sometimes, and we can do that for free in order that we can get a bit more of the networking and establishing one of the main objectives that we have at our association, which is translating or communicating better the research, the pure academic research that we do in our universities and research centers to industry and to the society in general. So I think that has been very productive, and it is growing. So I'm very happy to see that going. There is a huge interest among all the parties.
Thank you. Professor Pagani, maybe a word or two?
Yeah, I answer by chat, and So despite our association is quite old, it was only acting as at Australia. So this new format of the association is quite new because we just created it in 2020. And after there was COVID, so we could not do much. And now we are we are relatively new, and we are trying now to grow a bit. So you can say we have 200 members, but you guys have like thousands of members. And we don't have funding. And it was interesting to learn and see how you get funding. So to sponsorship and support from the government, that I think that is very great. I think that this is the direction in which we need to go. For example, the Italian government, they organize every year this event, which is the Italian Research Day in the World, which is in April. And they gave some sponsor for organized event on this day, which is fantastic. But I think we need to try to self-finance us and try to support more events and more initiative, like offering fellowship, sponsorship, sea grants. We need to try to grow in this sense. And regarding the question on the role of the diaspora and collaboration. So what can I say regarding Italian researchers? There are thousands of collaboration between independent scientists, but not as a network. And one of the big problems is trying to identify the network of Italian researchers in Australia, because it's quite hard for us to try to having a database of researchers, because it's a database that is keep changing. And this is one of our main goals for the next future, try to identify this network and try to identify better all of this personal collaboration between Italy and Europe that I know that are a lot. There are thousands of this kind of collaboration. And finally, it can be nice maybe to have more information about how to apply to a European grant like Horizon or Marie Curie, because most often we don't know where to go and how does it work. It can be nice to organize, I don't know, some seminars or some event. No, I don't know what other people think about it.
Yes, on that note, in the past, it has been done by the delegation, and of course, then it was a COVID years and so on. And let's say it is on our radar, and we are talking with colleagues in Brussels and internally, what would be the best way, because as throughout your interventions, it's very clear that there is the will and and need and so on, but sometimes getting the right information at the right moment is essential. So I take it on me and on the delegation that of course there is always more to be done, and yes, as once we come back from the hot Australian summer, I'll look into it. But of course, any of you can always write me any specific questions, and even if I don't know it, I will ask colleagues in Brussels, and then usually we always have information and we share it. And sometimes it's easier to get this email because then I always reply, and so I take it very seriously, because some theoretically, yes, we would like to do it. A concrete email, puts me on the spot, and then I do my work. On that happy note, confessions that there's always more to do. If Ms. Bokobze would like to say a few words in that round.
Thank you very much. So for our association, we also receive funds from the embassy, and we just started a full-time position, also financed by the French government, to operate the network as it's growing rapidly. So I think that's very helpful. And then I think, like my colleagues, Irina, we're on a case-to-case basis. So for example, when you do a big event or a big delegation, we are looking for private sponsorship as well. And just to come back about the point that we had before, I also very much aligned with the other. I would say that our associations are the point of entry for anyone who wants to understand a bit more about the network, and that the difference, with the work that the embassy is doing, for example, is that this kind of association, they can have people who are there from 15, 20, 30 years, and so it's a long time memory of the collaboration that is very, very helpful, especially as it's in specific thematics. And I think that makes it kind of a unique perspective that is very well, very important for newcomers on the market. And yep, that's about it. I heard a lot of your ideas of collaboration, and from a French-Australian association perspective, we'd love also to delegate a point of contact in our association if you want to address the European collaboration. That's also a way we could maybe start the process, because as you said, Feja, we all have so much to do, and we all want to see things happening, but if we don't delegate, I think the work to someone and have a regular meeting about it, I'm not sure it will really take off. So we'd be happy to designate someone if it's one way to go.
Okay, luckily this is as I said, luckily this is not the end of the process. It's a process, and we can do our share, and we can all explore new ideas and new venues, and we have the same goal to ensure that there is more and deeper and enhanced cooperation among us. It's a European scientific diaspora, but of course with our colleagues in the region. So now I am not sure how to proceed, because of course I have another question, but then at the same time I would like to have some time for audience to ask questions, because we are approaching the end of our panel. So let me see whether there are some questions.
Maybe I can quickly ask one question that I see recurring, and because we have all the 4 major diaspora networks here, I was just curious, because on the Zoom chat we have been trying to arrange something of a common diaspora event, and this is something that, as Angel mentioned, we did discuss in 2022. But I come back to what Frun mentioned, that we all are very busy with a lot of stuff, so we are not really able to capitalize on this. So I think it's an excellent idea, and what you propose as a contact point for European connection, I think makes a lot of sense. And to have a European scientific diaspora would be the dream. I don't know what you think. Maybe all of you could just quickly in a minute speak something on this. Irina, maybe you can start.
I think it's a great idea. I think if we put it under the umbrella of collaborating and co-designing, I think it can probably save us time, because time is always the issue. I totally agree. We're all time poor, and we're running networks of time poor people. So everything we do needs to be relevant, and we need to work in a way that we don't double up our work, but we rather co-batch and co-design and make it less work with higher impact. So yes, all for connecting the networks and creating something of more impact, and maybe just sharing, the work around.
Sure. One of the reasons that I also mentioned is this, because the 4 of you have established diaspora network, and we also want to give those who do not have a diaspora network somewhere of an umbrella that brings everybody together, which is the European umbrella, right? So that was the, what do you say, the motive that is behind the European scientific diaspora. Of course, we did have a lot of interest last time. And one of the reasons, I think the question that came up on the chat made a lot of sense, in the sense, where does your funding come from? Because a lot of these activities will then have to derive some sort of a funding mechanism, right? So I think it's excellent that we have this. Maybe I can quickly also hear from Angel on the idea of a European scientific diaspora.
For sure, I would love it. I think that it will be a great idea. We briefly discussed it in the past, and I can say also from the perspective of SRAP, SRAP already belongs to another network, as I mentioned, EURAXESS, extremely successful. So it's really good. So I don't see why this network of associations here in the European research associations in Australia, Australasia, should not work. Quite the opposite. It will be benefit. It will be for benefit for everybody, and also for raising the connections between Europe and Australia in Australasia in some way. And who knows? Perhaps we can start to be also doing a little bit of the lobby that is needed for trying to convince the Australian government to be part of Horizon Europe. For saying that and continuing the conversations that the ambassadors were having before, that it should be great for all, not only for us, not only for European-based researchers now in Australia, but also for all Australian researchers.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the absolute dream come true if in some way. But I think as a collective, what you said, it makes a lot of sense, because that would give a voice, a much larger voice.
That will start with this kind of event, or first networking event, that we could try to start coordinating eventually for next year. And definitely also trying, and I'm feeling a bit guilty because I should have done it and I didn't do it at the end, but try to invite us to the different organizations, the different people, to the different events, particularly the big events, the research forums and so on, that we organize, in order that we understand better what are the activities, the research, the collaborations that all of us are having. Because at the end of the day, perhaps, again, we will be able to find crossing paths and new collaboration arising, and it will enrich everybody. So there is no loss. There should not be no loss here, only gains, things to get.
Absolutely, absolutely. I could not agree more. Ilaria, maybe your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of having a European research association with a representative from every European state. I think that it can be great. It could help everyone. It can also try to involve like a small group that maybe they don't are in an association yet. Maybe starting small and try to becoming big. So maybe starting next year in February, having a meeting between us, deciding maybe one day that can be a next day for 2026, maybe for having a kind of event or seminar and start organizing.
Absolutely, yes. I think that puts a concrete next step, and it's something that we have to agree on. And informally, we did agree on the June chat, and the audience does not know that we might come up with a collective to agree on a meeting to discuss this possibility. Yeah. I'll take maybe Phoon's response so that it formalizes.
Thank you. Yes, just a few notes that we always try to bring Australia closer to friends in our network, but actually it's it's something that we really much can address as Europe as a whole, because usually when an Australian delegation comes to France, they can go to Germany as well, they can go to Spain and to Italy, and I think that's the benefit of everyone here to try to help Australia make this step towards Europe. So very happy to participate, and thank you all.
Excellent. And it's always heartening to hear, Phoon, when you said that there is a dedicated personnel that has been allocated with AFRAN, which is which is an excellent development that we have heard. I just saw in the chat that the Polish Australian Research Network had just been created, which is also an excellent update. So for sure, when we are meeting, we will send out this invite to you as well on the diaspora conversation. Fede, sorry that I hijacked this conversation. I think this is absolutely the next step that we all desired out of this this panel. What do you think?
No, I mean, you know, I will not say that I will say prophetic words, but you know, every project starts with a dream and, you know, with a hard and sometimes unattainable goal that in the past might had, you know, difficulties. But then from a personal perspective, I realized that any successful project, if you really look, it was in the beginning one person or a small group of people dedicated and they put a lot of time and energy into it. And then it grew. And in the beginning, without that enthusiasm and then dedication, you know, it would just not work. Once it works and established, and everybody's saying, "Oh, what's great!" Of course, it's without any doubt that it's working. But in the beginning, it's not like that. So you know, I really hope that you know, I and delegation will be able to play you know, positive role in that new endeavor for 2025. And so yeah, definitely, you know, let's meet and let's see what can be done. Of course, I will, as I said, you know, this is discussed internally, so I will talk with colleagues and see, you know, that you know, what else we can do to support you.
Excellent. I think now we have the EU delegation's blessings as well. So I think this is really the output that we might have desired ideally at the start of this panel discussion. A big thank you to you, Fedia, for an excellent moderation of the panel, and all four of you representing different diaspora networks, Irina, Angel, Ilaria, and Prun. It was really exciting to hear what all activities you have been doing and your enthusiasm to continue working on this. And of course, now that we are coming up with a solid output, we think we should be able to deliver something on this in the near future. That brings us to the end of the afternoon session of day 5, an excellent session we had with the first panel where the ambassadors spoke about EU and Oceania research cooperation and then the role of scientific diaspora just now. A sincere gratitude to all the amazing panelists for their insightful interventions. I'm sure that our audience found it very interesting with the chat reflexes that we were receiving. Thank you very much for staying. In 2 hours' time, we'll start the last session of the European Research Day, which is on PhD and postdoc opportunities in the EU member states. And there are 7 member states that are going to present. So if you have not registered yet, you still have some time to do that. See you soon, and signing off for now. Thank you very much from all of us from different parts of Australia and some of you from New Zealand as well. Thank you very much for tuning in.
The best.
Bye-bye.
See you.